Jim, I know you've kind of done everything in your career at this point, but does the switch to Cowboy, I mean, does it feel like a special fight, a fun fight, given your two guys' history?
Yeah, I mean, it adds a little bit more. You know, there was a stressful couple days where I didn't know if I was going to get the opportunity to fight on this card because apparently nobody wanted to fight me on 2 weeks' notice. But thankfully, Cowboy stepped up. Yeah, like there's never going to be a fight in the UFC that has as many octagon appearances, as many wins, total wins in the UFC. There's a lot of numbers in this one. So it's a fight that I wanted to get, before we both, ride off into the sunset, away from the sport. It was a no-brainer to take it when I got the opportunity.
You talked about a lot of numbers. I know you plan on continuing on after this with the all-time wins lead at stake, I guess. Mm-hmm. Is that a pretty special mark to have? I mean, that's a pretty big record to hold.
Well, I've never held it, so I really don't know. So, it's cool. Like, as an active fighter, I don't really think about it. To be perfectly honest, the last 39 fights have kind of been a little bit of a blur. With family and just some of the other bullshit that I've dealt with outside, and then training camps and fighting, and I get very focused. I'm good at focusing myself and just worrying about the task at hand. So I don't really step back and think about the numbers all that often. But yeah, it's a cool feather in the hat to have, I'm planning on taking it on Saturday night.
Was this a fight that you wanted over the years that you got to have that one back?
There are a few more that kind of rank up there. I'm not the type that looks back, and it's a detriment sometimes that I'm good at what's right in front of my face. So I don't really think about some of those fights. There have been a few more that other fights that I'm like, oh man, if I had done one thing, this thing, that thing, but as a competitor, I do want that opportunity for redemption. I know where I was at leading up to that fight. It was not an easy camp. It was not an easy time in my life. I'm 8 years older now. I'm not 30 years old and ranked in the top 10 anymore. But I know that I'm a much more dangerous fighter today than I was back then, and I'm ready to prove it.
I like it. Last thing for me, I guess, what kind of fight do you think we see? I mean, you two crafty veterans in there. Do you think it's going to be a back and forth battle, or you've shown the ability to get things done too?
I don't really. I try not to plan it out. I'm not good at that. I'm not even the guy that's 3 moves ahead of somebody. I'm the elevator music, don't even worry about it, and just bite down on my mouthpiece and go kind of guy. So I do remember what happened in the last fight, and I know that Cowboy is a dangerous guy, but I've also seen his last couple fights, so I'm looking to connect and hurt him and end it violently. That's always my goal. 39 fights, 23 wins in the UFC, 51 fights altogether. I think there's one time in my very first professional fight that I was smiling and happy about winning a decision. So that's never my goal. It never has been my goal. It never will be my goal. And if I get to that point that I'm just trying to game the clock, game the system, and hope that 3 individuals on the outside are choosing me to win, then I know that it's time for me to pack it up. I was asked yesterday, I think it was, about the legacy that I'd like to leave on this sport, and the one that hits, the moment in time that hits me the hardest is the last minute of that first fight with Joe Lozon. I knew I had it in the bag, and without those submission attempts that he had at the very end, that fight looks very different in people's eyes, and they don't see it as close as it ended up looking. And he attempted one of those scissor heel hooks just before, and I was able to push him away. And there's short time on the clock, and we've had champions run away and waste time so that they could get their hand raised. And I continued forward, exhausted, because there was still time on the clock, and I wanted to either choke him unconscious or knock him unconscious, even though I love Joe. It gave him the opportunity to attack me, and for the fight to end in a more dramatic fashion. It might have been stupid. It might have been poor fighter IQ and gamesmanship, but that's Jim fucking Miller, and I won't have it any other way. So I'm going out on Saturday to dominate, and that's always the goal.
Jim, was there any talk of this fight being at 155, or was the only discussion welterweight because of the short notice?
Briefly. So I found out the Saturday beforehand that Bobby was out, and Sean was like, "Hey, we're going to ask Cowboy since his fight fell through, if he wants to fight." And he didn't want, understandably, didn't want to make the cut again. I completely agree with that. For a few days there, I guess nobody accepted the fight, and then they went back to him at 170s, and I got the call on that Thursday, like literally maybe 20 minutes before it broke. I think you guys knew before I knew, it was like, hey, Cowboy said yes. What do you think of 170s? And I said, let's fucking do it.
How much weight do you have to cut? Do you have to cut much to get to 170?
I was walking around like 167, 168, preparing for the cut for 155. So I've been able to eat a little bit more, and I'm still eating salt and I'm still eating carbs, so I'm happy right now. Yeah. So,
do you think we'll see a better fight just because there isn't the weight, the depletion, and both of you are, you're healthy, you're eating a lot. Like, do you think this could be even better? Than what would be expected at 155?
There's definitely potential. Yeah. I've always wondered what it would be like to not have to cut anything and to just walk into a fight, and it's kind of one of those things. It sucks that cutting weight is part of the game. I don't want to get into my potential ideas for fixing it. I don't know if we have enough time for that. I think I'll need to do a TED Talk, but it's part of the game. There are fighters that don't do it as much, and I commend them. And they've got stones to do it because it's difficult, because everybody does do it, and it's kind of one of those things. If they're jumping off the bridge, then are you going to do it? Well, they're also going to punch me in the face and be 20 pounds heavier than me. So yes, Mom, I'm going to jump off the bridge. I'm excited to see what it's like to not have to cut, not have to deplete myself, because you always feel it. Yeah. It really doesn't matter. You always feel it.
Just last one for me. What type of camp have you had leading into this fight? You're preparing for Bobby Green, fighting Cowboy Cerrone. Were there any major switch-ups as far as camp?
No. One, there wasn't enough time to really do anything. And two, I don't really focus on my opponents. I've seen my peers do it in the past, and I've been guilty of it as well, expecting a fighter, a professional athlete, to not change, to not adapt, to not fill up holes, to not learn something new, and that's a dangerous thing. So my fight camps, it's like 90%, 95% me just getting ready, working on my weaknesses and making sure that my strengths are as strong as they can be, being in good shape, being healthy, so that I'm ready on fight night, because push comes to shove. If I can make anybody in the world fight a Jim Miller fight, I can beat them. That's the difficult part. Now, obviously, certain body types and styles bring different problems to the fight, and it's a different puzzle. And Bobby's is his own unique puzzle, so it was a little bit different camp, working for somebody that strikes in the way that he does, but it still was like me just trying to be me and be dangerous everywhere and be in good shape and ready to go.
Jim,
is this
just
an
a-
ideal scenario with the changing opponent.
Yep.
But then you get another living legend.
Yep.
And international fight week. Could it have been any better than that?
Not really, no. Like I said, I mean, the for it to come together like this, B40, have the opportunity to have my family out here, and to be fighting a guy that I got a ton of respect for and that I'm a fan of. Like it's on a giant card, it's pretty awesome.
And with the move to welterweight, does this kind of help one day you being at UFC 300?
I don't really think it has anything to do with that. It's the cuts are not, they're never fun. But I've got it pretty dialed in at this point. It's part of my job that I take very seriously. While I don't enjoy doing it, it's to be a professional. I believe you have to take it seriously. So, like nowadays, I don't walk around at the weight that I used to. I for a few years there, I was walking, around 190 pounds fighting at lightweight, and I still had a six pack. It was like still, so there were actually I told my coaches, it's like, hey, because I saw a significant increase in power when I'd be like over about 184, 185, and it's like, man, if I cut to 70s, I don't know if I'm still going to have that power. I'd almost rather walk into the octagon at 185s. Now, granted, I'd be fighting guys that are 205 pounds, but at least I wouldn't be going through the weight cut. But yeah, being on antibiotics for so long that absolutely destroy your insides, and it was hard to keep up with, is all I'm going to say. So I ended up losing a significant amount of weight, particularly in 2016. So I usually don't walk more than about 175 these days.
Excellent. And last thing for me, if you could elaborate, you mentioned for the first Cowboy fight there were a couple issues.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming they're not here now. If you want to kind of touch on that.
Yeah, I was going through a gym change at the time, right? Had been dealing with some drama and stuff like that at the gym that I'd been training at. So I was opening up my own place. I ended up banging up both of my feet pretty bad, and then I was dealing with a neck injury that I suffered 10 days before I fought Yancey. Actually, I have it on film. It's the most unspectacular thing you've ever seen in your life. I was sparring with Mickey Gall, who was like, feels like he was 15 at the time. He was probably like 20. Or maybe he would have been 22. I think he's 30 now. Sorry, Mickey. But he threw a hook, and I went to body lock him, and his chest hit my head since I'm a short little shit. And I ended up getting like a whiplash injury. And I felt it like pop, and we had 2 minutes left. It was the last round of the day. So I sucked it up. I got through the round, and it's like, man, I'm going to be hurting later. And I sure as hell was, that following day on Thursday. So, 9 days from the fight, I couldn't move. Ended up going and getting some work done on Friday and Saturday. Took Sunday off. Got work done on my neck on Monday. Headed down to Maryland on Tuesday. Was able to get through fight week. Barely warmed up, for the fight. Luckily, had the fight. Nothing happened. Literally the first day that I was back training, I think I got the Cowboy fight a week later. So then it was like that Wednesday or something like that. I went to grapple, and I postured up, like tripoded up to pass one of my training partner's guards, and my neck popped again, and it was like it was pretty bad. So I was getting work done and really taking it easy, not barely like super controlled rolling, super controlled sparring. It was one of those injuries that kind of like had an effect on me for a while, because the most difficult thing that it did was it made it hard to wrestle. With somebody like hanging on my head or something like that would cause me a lot of pain. So fortunately, you know, through stubbornness, I got over it, and you know, I've been able to kind of get past it. But it was not a fun time, you know. But it had nothing really to do with the fight, honestly. You know, it's not like it hurt me in the fight. You know, it probably affected my preparation, but you know, because you are what you have done the last couple weeks leading up to a fight, you know, where habits matter. So I wasn't, you know, I wasn't at my peak and my point at that point, but you know, I really wanted to fight, so I took it.
Thank you, sir. Good luck on Saturday.
Thank you.
Jim, just at the back here.
Yep.
You know, going into this Saturday, you and Cerrone have got a ton of experience behind you both. How do you see the fight playing out on Saturday night?
Violently. Yeah, you know, like I said, I know what he's capable of. He's a dangerous guy, and that's why I like watching him fight. But I've also seen his last couple fights, and I know that he's, you know, hasn't been taking damage well. So I have to be smart. I have to be quick, and you know, like I said, I have to make it a Jim Miller fight, and like I had said too, I know that I'm the most dangerous that I've ever been, because of the guys that I have around me, because of my team, because of my coaches, and because of what I like to think is usually pretty smart training. You know, I definitely do stupid stuff here and there, but you know, yeah, I feel good. So like I said, I know what he's capable of. He's definitely capable of hurting me, but I'm more than capable of hurting him as well. So I see a violent fight, you know, on ABC. So I hope the fans tune in. All right. Thank you guys.